going from 0 to 60 with Fox and the Hound, so let's get cracking! Hello all my explorers, and welcome back to Loren's Adventures Out There. And if you are new, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. My name is Loren, and I'm with Castles, Capes, and Clones, where we discuss everything in the Disney universe. We do unboxings and hauls, pins, box swaps, Disney news, Disney reviews, and more. So if that sounds fun to you, we'd love it if you would subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for notifications, and do like this post, as it really does help us out. So we are continuing our series from 0 to 60, which is our look at the films of the Walt Disney Animation Studios in order, starting with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and we'll be going all the way up until Encanto. Today, we are going to be talking about the Fox and the Hound, which is kind of the last film of an era and the beginning of another. So, as you know, Walt had 9 old men who were the core animators. They were with him through Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs all the way until he passed away. And many of which worked up until The Rescuers. Some help on this film. Wooly Reitherman was a director on this film, but we'll talk a little bit more about what happened with that. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know who the 9 old men were. So Les Clark is one of them, and he worked Lady and the Tramp. And that's when he retired. And then we had Mark Davis, who worked until 101 Dalmatians, and he fabulously animated Cruella de Vil. Then he went to go on to work on, some little projects for Walt Disney Imagineering, such as The Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion and such. Ollie Johnson, who was the last surviving old man, he actually did some work on this film, The Fox and the Hound. So he worked quite a bit, and even on non-Disney projects. And then you had Milt Kahl, who, as we talked about, retired after The Rescuers, after he fabulously animated Madame Medusa. And then we have Ward Kimball. Ward Kimball was kind of the person who thought outside the box. He liked to do a lot of limited animation and very stylistic kind of things. And I think that he worked through the 50s. And then he started doing other things aside from that. We had Eric Larson, who actually ended up training. He was and then we had Eric Larson, who did, he was basically the first trainer for new animators that Ron Miller set up. And he worked he trained animators until The Great Mouse Detective, which we will be talking about in a couple weeks. There's John Lounsbury, who passed away. He was one of the directors of The Rescuers and passed away in the middle of the production. And then there's Frank Thomas, who is, hand in hand with Ollie Johnson. He worked, pretty much nonstop. Did some... All right, so getting back to Fox and the Hound. Fox and the Hound is about a little fox who was adopted by an old Widow Tweed. And he one day makes friends with a hound dog named Copper. and they were the best of friends when they were younger, and even though they were kind of two different sides of the fence, even the owners, Widow Tweed and Amos Slade, didn't get along with each other, but Todd and Copper were pretty much hand in hand. But as all stories go, unfortunately, Widow Tweed had to give up Todd and brought him to the forest. At the meantime, Amos brought both Copper and his other dog, Chief, out hunting. And one day when they return, um, Copper and Todd come face to face. But this time, they are on opposite sides, and it ends in a tragedy where Chief gets injured by an oncoming train and makes Copper hate Todd. And so, anyway, the two of them become enemies before they both remember and kind of just go their separate ways. And so that's Fox and the Hound. I loved this movie when I was younger. I cried when Widow Tweed had to give up Todd, and I remember watching this film several times, just like The Rescuers. This was the second film that I would remember in original release. So anyway, this film was kind of in a little bit of a problem. You had Wooly Reitherman, who was kind of the head of the old guard. And then you had this new training program bringing in new animators, and most of them gravitated to the co-director, Art Stevens. Um, and there were always several arguments over things that should be or not be. Lots of hurt feelings. Like, for instance, Chief was supposed to die uh, during the train because it would made Copper's rage even more palpable, which I would agree with. But because they felt like Wooly Reitherman felt like they couldn't kill off Chief. Like, it's a Disney movie, they're not going to kill off Chief. Another famous fight between Wooly Reitherman and the younger animators was that Wooly Reitherman felt like there needed to be a musical number added to the second act, and wanted to put in a couple of swooping cranes who would be, get this, voiced by Phil Harris, who we all know, and Charo. Yes, and it would have been called Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Let Your Body Turn to Goo. And Charo even recorded the song, and I need to find this. I'm obsessed with Charo. I love Charo. Here's my picture of me with Charo. Yeah, so that was another argument. The younger guard said, "What the heck?" And was ultimately taken out. And there was a lot of animosity from the young guard to the old guard, um, and a lot of them pitting Wooly Reitherman against Art Stevens, and a lot of them would go and escalate all the way up to Ron Miller. Ron Miller tended to side with Art Stevens. And so this really was kind of the last hurrah for any of the nine old men. Wooly Reitherman would not, work again. Work again. Eric Larson was still with the company, but he had not been doing animation for the films. He was doing the training program. Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas did some work at the beginning, but by the end of this, it was pretty much a young person show, and a lot of the young people were. Some of the new animators were like Glenn Keane, who went on to animate The Beast. You had Brad Bird, who was the director of The Incredibles for Pixar, John Lasseter. You had John Musker, who has done a whole variety of films, most of the time with Ron Clements. You had Tim Burton working on this film. And halfway through this, you had Don Bluth working on this film. And Don Bluth was, for those of you who don't know, started his own company and did films like Anastasia, An American Tale, The Secret of Nim. So he went on to work on a whole bunch of classics on his own, but he was so fed up with what was going on in the film that on his 42nd birthday, he actually went and with a bunch of other animators and quit. And then he started his own company, and again, that's where it went. So this film had actually a lot of different celebrity voices. Mickey Rooney was the adult Todd. Kurt Russell came in and voiced a adult Copper, and the younger Copper was Corey Feldman, who many of you in the 80s know his name. He was in several movies, especially Goonies and The Lost Boys. You had Sandy Duncan, who was a big name back then. And one of my favorites, Pat Buttram, who has voiced many a animated character, especially Luke, who was one of the muskrats in The Rescuers. And one can't forget the incredible Pearl Bailey. I loved Pearl Bailey back in the day, and just hearing her sing "Best of Friends," it still gives me goosebumps. I just think that it's such a love. So in the end, this film did do actually very well, despite kind of lukewarm critical reception. It was the highest grossing animated film up until that time. So it did very well. But despite that, we will be going into the Black Cauldron. And this marks a very short but marked age for Disney. And this is what many would call the Dark Age. In fact, some people refer Fox and the Hound as part of the Dark Age, but I kind of feel that it is the tail end of the Bronze Age. So anyway, the next film will be A New Era. I hope that you enjoyed our little talk today. And if you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for notifications, and do like this post, as it really does help us out. Thank you so much, and we will see you later. Bye!